Hi, this video is to explain the worksheet on page 112, the chromatography demonstration, claim, evidence, reason. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have already watched that YouTube video on Edpuzzle on the 3 different chromatography experiments. And in those 3 different chromatography experiments, you should have noticed that it was done 3 times. The first time was done correctly. So this first column is going to be the correct way to do that experiment, where you have your origin line drawn in pencil, and then he does explain why that needs to be done in pencil. So of course, I want you to make sure you do that, take that quiz. And then the second thing that's done correctly is the solvent, the water in this case, is below the origin line. So the first experiment shown in that video is the correct way. The second experiment is going to be with one incorrect option, and that is that he is going to draw the origin line in ink. So that's the second video in that, or second experiment. In that second experiment, he draws that in ink, not in pencil, and you're supposed to observe what happens when we have an ink origin line. The last and third experiment is that the mistake is that he puts the entire experiment, the origin line with the solutes, below the solvent line. So again, we remember from the t-shirt and the DDEE that the solvent is going to be the dissolving liquid or the dissolving portion of your solution. If you're making lemonade, that would be your water. Your solute, emphasis on that U, is what you add to the mixture or the solution. So if you're making lemonade, that would be you adding in the lemon juice. If you're making Kool-Aid, that's the Kool-Aid powder. It will be dissolved by the solvent. So the solvent is usually the more abundant one, the water in this case, and the solute is what you add to the solution. That's going to be your Kool-Aid or your lemonade. So in the third experiment, he is putting the entire solute line with the origin below the solvent, so below the water. So let's look at, do you have to do this on Google Form, or can you do this by hand? Honestly, I would do this by hand in my interactive notebook. So I'm going to scroll down so you can see what that would look like. So if you look here, I've done this one in my interactive notebook, and I just want to make sure you guys remember all assignments do need to have your name in ink with the period. So there's my name and there's the period. You're going to put the title of your assignment at the top. So this is the chromatography demo. You'll notice that I recreated the 4 columns. My first column is that question column. After you have watched the video and all 3 experiments, you will come up with 1 question for each experiment. These should be taken from Costa's house. So these are higher level questions, preferably at least a level 2 or above. So questions 1 for each part of the experiment. So the very first column is he has done the experiment correctly. The origin line is drawn in pencil. So we have emphasis on pencil. And we have that the origin line is above the solvent. So we want to make sure our dots start. So when it says diagram on that first part, you are literally drawing the experiment before it starts. So right here, we see the chromatography paper is drawn. I have labeled that as my stationary phase. We remember the paper is the stationary phase. I have drawn my origin line at the bottom. Again, it's correct, so it has to have pencil line labeled. I've drawn, it looks like an ocean, but it's the solvent line. So I've drawn the solvent level below the origin, and I'm just kind of coding that in blue. And my solutes, 1, 2, 3, those are my inks that are going to be distributed. And again, we remember from chromatography that they are going to be separated based off molecular size. Larger molecules on the bottom, smaller molecules on top. And that also depends on whether or not your ink, your makeup, whatever it is you're dissolving, your paint, whether or not it is soluble in the solution. So if the solvent is not soluble, then this line will not move. Okay, and we saw that in one of the experiments. So for the C, the claim, this is a 1-sentence statement. You're basically going to tell me what do you think is going to happen, or in this case, I put the ink spots are solute and will separate if they, and then blank. You guys want to fill in that blank, and by blank size, and then finish the statement. So you're going to tell me what's going to happen. You're going to place the solute here. What's going to happen to them? So basically what happens in the experiment. You do that in a one-sentence claim. They move because of this. They separate because of what? So you're basically filling in that type of statement. The second part, your evidence. Now, this evidence is highly dependent on your observations. And so for this, I'm asking you guys to draw your evidence. So this is the before picture. This is the after picture. And so we see there are my 3 dots, and this is what they looked like. Go back to the video for the actual colors. I totally made this up, and I only had a certain number of colors available to me. So this is not an accurate picture. Go based off of the picture from the video. Nonetheless, I have labeled my solvent front. So that's the water line. That is where the water stops on the chromatography paper. You generally stop it. Once the water line has gone beyond the separation point, you may see what's called a V-shaped depression. I did draw them here. He does not reference this. I would have said this in class. But if you don't see that, generally what this means is that you pull the paper out of the solution before the solvent front has a chance to go over the top. Once it goes over the top, you don't know where it would have stopped, and you can't calculate retention factor. So that's an important thing to remember. Each line, each testing subject, so A, B, C, or I could have called it black, red, green, is going to have a set of spots. So I've labeled them spot 1, spot 2, spot 3, origin. You can label them A, B, C. You can label them by color. The important part, though, is that you remember that these 3 spots are components or ingredients, maybe you want to say that, of this original origin spot. And then this is where we started at. We see this one only has 1 spot. What does that mean? So you want to make sure you're able to tell me, what does it mean when there's only 1 large continuous spot here? What does it mean if it doesn't move at all? That's something you might want to look at for the quiz. This one has 2 spots, so we would say it has 2 ingredients. Last, your reason. Now you've done your claim. This happens, okay? This one, this is how I'm demonstrating it. This is how I prove it. So think of your evidence as the proof. And the reason is now you're explaining why did it happen. So this is the what, okay, that you're kind of doing. What's going to happen. This is the evidence or the proof of what's going to happen. And your reason is your why or your how it happened. So you're going to say the spots are the solute and they separate because, and you want to use all of your academic vocabulary. You want to tell me they separate because they are soluble in the solution or they're soluble in that solvent. They separate based off of size, etc., etc. So all of the vocabulary words that I placed in the last assignment, those will help you to create your claim and your reason. You want to make sure that you are highlighting your vocabulary as you are using it. If you don't see highlights in here when you're making your statements, that means you're not really telling me anything. So make sure you are using your vocab. Last, your summary is going to go here. You write your summary to answer the question that I posed on this original document up here. So what 2 precautions must you make when setting up a chromatography experiment? So again, we're talking about what did he do here? What did he do there? So what do you need to make sure that you do if you ever do this experiment? Be sure to use the word solubility, solvent, solute, mobile phase, and stationary phase in your answer. Highlight them when you are done or box them if you don't have a highlighter. You will have 3 pictures along the top. 1, 2, 3. These are your before pictures. You will have 3 pictures at the bottom. 1, 2, 3. These are your after pictures. 3 claims. 1, 2, 3. You are claiming why was this a mistake? Why was this a mistake? So this is the claim you're making. Was this wrong? Why was that wrong? Your evidence, you draw it. Your reason, you're telling me what happens. He tells you the reason at the end of each stage. So make sure you listen, maybe watch the video again. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on Remind, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, this is due on Sunday, and you guys do have a quiz on Friday. If you have any other questions, let me know. Have a good day.